All right, you're good to go, Chloe.
Awesome. So as all of you probably know, we're going to be going over officer transitions and just kind of what they are and how we can improve those. So for those of you that don't know me, I know I look a little bit different than this picture. I normally look different like every 3 months because I like to dye my hair a lot. But I am Chloe Keeling. Obviously, I've been working in the SAO since October of this last year, and I've been working for housing on campus for the past 3 years. So most of you have probably seen me around at some point. We're kind of just going to be going over what officer transitions are, how to prepare for them, what you really need to talk about, and then just a few tips. And if you guys have any questions for me. So basically, whenever your officers are transitioning in your RSO, a lot of the times you hear like, don't just pass the binder, because you'll have a big binder full of a bunch of information and it's like one officer just hands it to the next, and then it's all their responsibility to read through and see everything that they need to do. The procedures are just the rules of your organization, because they vary depending on how your constitution is laid out and things like that. So it just really helps to continue the growth and all the work that your RSO has put in to keep that going to where it's not just stop, so everyone can relearn and then continue doing the work. And it minimizes confusion, obviously creates more confidence in those officers that are taking over those positions, as well as just minimizes the loss of momentum, like I said. So what is best for your RSO as far as officer transitions can kind of, obviously it'll vary based on what kind of RSO you have, whether or not you guys are bigger, just starting out, you have smaller number of members and stuff like that. So one of the first options is you can do a retreat. I know some of the bigger organizations in past have done this, like CAB or RHA back a couple years ago did this, where they kind of did a full day training session. So they do icebreakers, kind of a lot of team building skills to get their members that might not know each other as well to really be involved in the organization and build those relationships together, as well as you can do history of the organization, missions, values, everything like that. It's basically an all-day ordeal to build up your RSO. You can do training meetings, which is basically a half day of that. So all the main important things you need to hit on: missions, values, team buildings, just in a smaller time period. You're not going to be doing as much. And then I feel like which would be the most common one would be your just one-on-one transition meetings. So these would be, about an hour long, kind of just roughly how long you need to make them, whether it be 30 minutes, hour and a half. They're not going to be super long at all. And that's just where the incoming officer and the outgoing officer sit down and have a meeting. They may bring that binder that officer has and kind of walk them through that, go over everything, kind of hit on like, this is what I did in this position mostly. I didn't do this as much, and kind of just tell them the lay of the land and how that position really works. Which is by far the most popular one. So you just kind of have to decide what's going to be best for your RSO and what you guys think you'd like to do. This next part is going to be just the kind of prep that goes into officer transitions. And it really just depends on which transition you're going into, which role you're going into. So documents is a big part of this, whether or not you're president, treasurer, VP, or any other title that you may hold in an organization, because they all vary depending on your constitution and everything. But just really passing those documents, whether or not you put them in a binder or not. And underneath there, I have some examples of what that might look like for different roles. And then this next step is going to be basically kind of your meat of that meeting that you'll be having. And so obviously you want to start with the meeting, as well as setting expectations for your RSO, and especially for that officer. You can't go into a role and not know what to do. It's kind of like when you get a job, you have a job description, you know what you want to achieve for this next year, or what your day-to-day is going to look like, what your week is going to look like, and really setting those expectations for that officer so they have a clue. And as well as doing those team building exercises, like we said, with the different meetings that you guys can do, because obviously when everything is going to be switching out, all of your officers are going to be transitioning to different people. None of those people have ever worked together before, most likely. Obviously, they've been in the organization together, so they're familiar with each other, but they may have not had to have that one-on-one interaction or connection. And so really building those relationships in order to run a smooth RSO. So some specific topics that you should probably be going over in these meetings are just, let's hit those, required things that we need to do. So updating our NumaLink roster, as well as, submitting that re-registration request whenever the time comes for that. Setting goals, like I said, we're fixing to go over what a SMART goal is for those of you that don't know. Go over programming, did you guys do a lot of programming? Did you not do enough? How are your meetings ran? Are you less formal, more formal? Is there anything you'd like to change? Recruitment, did you gain any members? Did the members that you gained, did they stay? Do you need to work on recruitment? So going over these will really help your RSO, as well as marketing. Like, do you guys have your social media accounts? Are you interacting with other RSO social media accounts, or like with the SAO's social media, stuff like that, kind of get your name out there, as well as, getting your flyer stamped and getting that NumaLink request in early enough, hitting that 2-week mark so you can really program for your events and whatnot. Which leading into events, did any of them go well? Do you want to repeat any of these events? I know there are a few organizations on campus that do some of the same events, each semester, each year, because they're always a big hit. Like, they always get their name out there. Students love those events, so they continue to do them because they've had a really well interaction with them. And lastly, just kind of looking at your budget, kind of budgeting out this next year. If you have bigger events that you have to put on and you need to put back money for those, kind of just seeing what it looks like, asking members, asking yourself, do you guys want to fundraise for this next year? Next, we talked about goals. So you really want to set a SMART goal for your organization. You want to be achievable. These officer transitions happen every year, so you want to be able to say, like, set short-term goals that you can get done within the amount of time that you have, but as well, if you would like to set long-term goals, make sure that it's something that can be carried on through the next transition of officers and that is achievable for them to do. So you want these goals to be specific. You've got your 5 W's: who, what, when, where, why. Measurable, how are you going to meet this goal? Achievable, like I said, with that timeline, are you going to be able to do it within that set amount of time? As well as relevant, is what you're wanting to do and what you're saying you want to do line up together? And time-based, like I said, you kind of have that roughly year mark or maybe semester mark, just however you want to set that up. So last minute tips and any questions that you guys would have. To make sure your officer transitions go smoothly, you can add a section to your constitution or bylaws, kind of dictating like how you guys want to do them, when you'll start that process, things like that, if you really want to have that set in stone. As well as just starting early. Like, if you wait till the last minute, it's just like schoolwork or anything else, which I know people love to procrastinate. I feel like that's all of us. But starting early, you're really going to be able to get more done. You're not going to forget less things. You'll have more time to get everything said and done and tucked away versus waiting for the last minute. As well as making sure all contact info is switched over. So give those new people coming in, if the outgoing officer is okay with it, give them their number. That way, if they have any quick questions, they can always send them a text and they'd be if they're willing to help. And then lastly, document everything. Like we say, don't just pass the binder. Obviously, we want to sit down and have these meetings and really prepare these officers to go into their roles, but documenting everything is also very helpful to sit down and go through and really help them be successful. So, does anyone have any questions or anything like that for me today?
Chloe, I would be curious to hear from the people that are here, if there was anything that you potentially, that was done well for you when you took position of like your officer position that you would want to give as advice to anyone.
Yeah, definitely being open, and I'm a big question asker. I'm not gonna lie, I will ask a million and one questions until people probably get annoyed with me because I like to have all of the information. So I think one of the things that was very helpful is the binder that I was given. While I wasn't given very much guidance on what to do, it was very well organized. And you know, I read through pretty much everything because I like to be very prepared, but the way it was organized was really easy for me to find all the information that I needed, and I could flip through and access everything really easily. And then I was also given the woman that had the position before me, I was given her phone number. And so if I had any questions, she was very sweet and open to me, just texting her or calling her and saying, hey, like, can you help me out with this? And she would. So definitely just being flexible.
Well, Tran, Alyssa, Sonley, Macy, do y'all have any suggestions of things that have helped you all?
Um, I know what I think Chem Club did in the past is that they would have like the officers, kind of the current officers talk with the new officers, and that helped me when I transitioned from the social media manager. And you know, they told me like their experience and how they work things. It if that that helps anything.
Yeah, I think so.
It always helps to get someone else's opinion and how they did something, even if that's not how you're wanting to do it. If you're wanting to change the position up a little bit or focus on other things, it's still nice to hear like how they did it because it's still useful to you. So
Yeah, I find what helps me a lot is just having that transition meeting. So just sitting down with someone and talking through it. I mean, you can definitely read through things. There's some, I'll probably send out something as it gets a little bit closer. I mean, we're already almost to April though, so it's happening. The end of the semester is coming. But we do have some transition documents that someone created in our office a couple years ago. And it's kind of helpful. It's just kind of like, here's some things that you could do, you know, as you get someone who's newly elected. And you have the outgoing officers fill out some information, you have the incoming officers fill out some information, and they sit down and kind of compare notes and so forth. And it's kind of helpful to have those things. You know, often groups will have like a transition meeting. You know, to be honest, sometimes, I mean, I think you have to also know whenever that's not appropriate. Because sometimes you might have a group who's not functioning well. And maybe you don't want those officers to train the new incoming officers. So that happens too sometimes. And so you have to kind of be able to recognize that a little bit as well. But I mean, the biggest things I think are, you know, the biggest things I think are being able to, I don't know, to just be able to like just kind of be there for them and kind of at least learn, you know, like where are the shared documents located? You know, where's our constitution? Making sure, a big one I think is making sure that your officers have access to Newlink. Just because I know sometimes outgoing officers will not think to change the roster, but if you don't do that, then the people that are coming in don't have any access at all to any documents or anything. And so just kind of those little tips and tricks are always good. Making sure you're sharing things like social media passwords is a big one that gets left off sometimes that people don't think about. So, but I agree with Chloe too. I think sometimes it's just nice to, if you got a really good team, you know, being able to offer up to like, hey, please call me if you have any questions. I'm happy to help, you know, so that kind of thing. All right. Any other feedback or questions that you all have for Chloe? That's my phone, ignore it. All right, well, thank you all so much for coming to our final session, and we will get this posted shortly.
Thank you guys very